So,
Okay.
hello everybody. Thank you so much for joining us for this conversation with the artist Ad Minoliti. My name is Alberta Romano and I'm the curator of Kunsthalle Lissabon. Lisbon Art Weekend invited us to participate in the weekend with a special event, and together with the directors and curators of Ad Minoliti show, João Mourão and Luís Silva, we thought that the best option to take part in this weekend, it could have been to invite the artist for a small talk. Unfortunately, in fact, because of the pandemic, we couldn't have Ad Minoliti here in Lisbon with us. And that's why we invited her virtually in order to give to all the public the best introduction we could have, the artist one, of course. And so just before starting, I know you are already doing, but we kindly ask you to not activate audio or video. We will take some questions at the end of the conversation, so please feel free to use the chat box to send us comments, questions, whatever you want. And thank you so much again for your participation. So here we are. Hello, Hart. Thank you so much for joining us. And how are you and where are you?
Well, thank you for this opportunity and thank you everyone for your time. I salute you from my house in Buenos Aires, Argentina.
Thank you too. First of all, I would love to ask you if you want to tell us more about the opening research for the exhibition Nave Vermelhe in Kunsthalle Lissabon. And of course, in the meantime, I'm going to share the screen so everybody can see some picture of the show.
Good. Well, the series of works using image from space started in 2018 after my project in Cadiz, San Francisco, called the Feminist School of Painting. So one of the workshops of the school was led by scholar and writer Martha Kenney, right? And she talked about landscape representation from USA and Canada paintings in the 18th centuries to the space race and contemporary colonization of Mars. So her study on these different landscapes showed their design basically for pleasure and profit of white settlers, and all the problematic representation that we criticize, the white heteronormative system that wants to define nature now and then, how we should live also in outer space. Yeah. So that was the beginning of using pictures of NASA or retrofuturistic cartoons. Also, Steven Universe is a big inspiration for me into rethinking science fiction. So in the same way, I use digital collage to intervene in decoration magazines or vintage form. I can take my alternative universe, to the stars. For example, I made another project online where my geometrical figures live in a house from the Jetsons, the cartoons. Then, talking with Luis and Joao about our mutual galactic interest, it made a lot of sense to create the spaceship in the gallery.
Okay, cool. Thank you so much. I love this reference that you gave us. And as you just said, your practice is mostly inhabited by geometrical forms, surreal architecture sometimes, and most of the time, new forms of life. And altogether, they seem to propose new keys to read our surrounding, also in a totally not gender-oriented way, right? And so my question is, in which way a sci-fi scenario can be part of this project of rethinking our conventional structures, for example?
Well, more than not gender, my goal is to look for a non-binary approach.
Okay.
So my plan with any installation is to break with the traditional white cube for once. For example, I recommend the essay Inside the White Cube by Brian Doherty. That was one of the inspirations. And mostly also rethinking about the tradition of geometry, abstraction, and this idea of masterness, you know. Also very important from the 70s, the writing by Linda Nochlin, you know, about the lack of great woman artists. So if we can see a large pattern of patriarchal legacy in art history, then I wanted to speculate a non-binary view on the pictorial abstraction, you know, with the tools that queer theory give us. So one of my ways will be adding also values that modernism and gender roles demean, you know, for feminine, like tenderness, cuteness, non-cynical humor, animism, childhood. So at the end, it's an experiment and a speculation, like a question. Like, what if I mix these things that don't appear together socially or culturally? You know, for example, geometry and sex, or the idea of a kawaii Mondrian.
Okay. Yeah, cool. In fact, your work as a painter engages also with the organization of proper projects and workshop, like, as you said before, the Feminist School of Painting. Do you want to tell us more about your workshops?
Right. Well, from the beginning in my career, you know, I was formed by art clinics run by Diana Aisenberg and other alternative education platforms made by artists like the Centro de Investigaciones Artísticas. I believe that art education is for life, like it cannot be limited to universities or degrees. It should be a constant building of practices and experiments, like in any field. So I'm with the idea that painting also it's an expanded language, much more than a mere technique or product. And the feminist school started also challenging the way we learn and organize or produce knowledge into categories too. So you can find the classes online at the website fschool.cadiz.org. Basically, the school is an installation that it's activated. You are surrounded by murals with a big table, and everything has a kindergarten vibe. Like the participants are all ages and all backgrounds. Like there is no expertise required. The class starts first with a talk and slideshow by a guest collaborator, and the guest can be artists, academics, activists, like different backgrounds. And the talk originally used a pictorial genre as an excuse to talk about gender, race, technology, animals, whatever the collaborators research. For example, artist Sarah Hotchkiss made a class about mythological painting and female monsters using her research on the movie saga Alien. After the presentation, so in general, there is a second part of the school that is practical, and the participants are invited to paint in order to process the talk from before with their hands and also by creating new image. So the experiment is based on Diana Aisenberg's method and look to break with the division by ages and disciplines that has traditionally the education system, right? I look for a safe space that is open, free, and as accessible as possible.
Okay, cool. Yeah, and I mean, I think that is so important. For example, your words let me think of Bruno Munari, an amazing Italian artist, designer, and teacher. I have a picture here I have, and who strongly try to change the didactic methods for children, for example. And in one of his lessons, I still remember, he invited children to draw on irregular sheets, very different from the A4. And boom, immediately children had drawn some things that otherwise they wouldn't have never thought about. And so that's actually one of the way in which you can subvert and all the imposed rules from, in this case, the sheet, but from the society in general. So yeah, I think it's very important to change perspective. Thank you so much. That ad was very inspiring. And yeah, I think we are just about the time to take some questions. So guys, if you are hearing us, please feel free to use it. Oh, we have one already.
Bayenzo, yeah.
Yeah, I read just to let everybody listen. Regarding sci-fi reference, today sci-fi is a pretty common theme in contemporary art, but most of the time the attention is focused on some very recent discoveries like interaction between human and machines, artificial intelligence. So I'm pretty curious to know, why do you choose a retrofuturistic scenario instead of a new one? That's nice.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense for me personally to use retrofuturistic, because it's not only fed up by modernism and modern architecture, but also is the science fiction that I grow up with. So for me, it's also engaged with this childhood that I was referring earlier. You know, how we have all these fantasies and science fiction from the early age, being like a disciplinary platform for our fantasies. So that's why I use also decoration magazines, you know, from the 70s, because basically I was born in the 80s. But yeah, I think also retrofuturism is a sort of fetish now in terms of aesthetics.
Yeah.
Like, so I'm very interested in the aesthetic too.
Okay, cool. No, I think, yeah, it's interesting also to go deep in the where the references come from. But we have also another question from Azores. Can you speak about a bit more about sincerity and post-cynicism as a political category? How are they relevant in the current situation vis-a-vis right-wing extremists and the rise of fascism, the climate emergency, etc.?
Well, that's a tough question. But personally, my feelings toward this cynicism or this irony, that the problem is when it's being used by the people that is the privilege, you know, in our system of oppression, it's really like a knife, you know, when you have two sharp edge. I don't know how you say in English. Like we say in Spanish, un arma de doble filo.
Yeah. I don't know the expression. Would say like a double-sided metal. I don't know.
Like I feel like many artists also working in political art that kind of duplicates the oppressor side. Like, for example, Santiago Sierra, you know, like I personally, I think that kind of work is dangerous. It doesn't, it doesn't inspire me anything. Like, I think it's functional to the right wing. I think the rise of fascism, it's, yeah, fed up with a lot of this cynical, like from memes, you know, with the Pepe the Frog. Like, it's, yeah, it's very serious. Yeah, personally, I don't engage with that type of, yeah, way of criticize, because I don't feel it helps, you know, to the people that's supposed to be helping.
Yeah, no, definitely. Also because regarding what we were talking about last time, I think about the children books that you show me, you just both, right? And that's nice point in which an artist can focus on the attention, because of course, starting from the roof of the education, you can really somehow change also the way in which the culture is perceived. So organizing this kind of workshop or trying to slightly change a bit our perception, I think it's also very important tool we can.
I'm going to show to everyone that we are talking about.
Oops, it is with the, we cannot see with the background.
Let's see if it happens. Well,
no, it disappeared.
I have to remove the, sorry. Let's do it just for a second, so I can show you my new acquisition. Like, I'm working more in this disciplinary tools, you know, that we use when we are kids. I got this book from the 70s that it basically show you how to draw, you know, with geometric figures. But then this book is completely, yeah, wrong in many parts. Like, for example, we have this Colón discovered America, you know. There are all these facets message in the way we learn. Like, I think we have to rethink, yeah, all the, mostly, yeah, all the information that is target to childhood.
Yeah. Oh, you're back in the space with the back. Oh, wow, we have other questions. Let's read. There is one about Elon Musk. Can you read it? What do you think of Elon Musk's plan to colonize Mars? Do you think a clearer version of a space exploration is still achievable or dreamable? And can I ask you, what is your favorite moment scene in Steven Universe? So we have a fan of Steven Universe here.
Yeah, I think Steven Universe changed the paradigm of science fiction for kids mostly, but for everyone. Like, I believe Elon Musk is such a clown. Like, he's the worst. Like, I think his plan is just a campaign, you know, but it's everything that is wrong for sure. And a queer version of space, like, that's what I'm trying to achieve with this series, you know, just a fantasy. I think a queer version of anything is possible as long as there is people imagine that, imagining, you know. And Steven Universe, my favorite moment, I think it was when I discovered about fusions. When we see that, well, spoiler alert, and we see that Garnet is a fusion. I think that concept is like a high queer fantasy, you know, and also it echoes a lot with my work, because I think of my characters as these ensembles of geometrical figures. Like sometimes I call them Frankenstein, geometrical Frankenstein, because in many compositions I can't even tell which one is an individual. So you just have these shapes that, according different, you know, views, they're going to create different characters in the same image. And I like that idea. I think it echoes with the fusion in terms of where is the body when it's ending, when it's becoming something else, you know, how is identity, you know, performance, like beyond the skin.
Yeah. But I was gonna ask you, because I see a lot of question about the presence of the furry, the cat, in our exhibition. Your characters are geometrical figure, as I read, but you also have furries. How are they related?
Yeah. Well, there's a question that also said, like, why a cat in the spaceship? So the furry started like long time ago, like a very logical reply to my use of mannequins, and also this animal dimension that I was put in more and more in the work. So when I started using the mannequins, it was to show the dresses that I was doing with my paintings in collaboration with Argentinian designers. And then I didn't want to show the mannequin by itself because of the human shape and also the hegemonic, you know, shape of the body according to Western beauty. But then I show mannequins without head, and when I start thinking about furries, it made a lot of sense to make that mannequin a furry, because it's the animal, you know, that also with all the references to the fandom between the tenderness, the sexuality, you know, the queerness, and the transhumanism. So it was like, I have to do it. And the cat in the spaceship, in the fantasy, it's part of also like the flowers, you know, you have this spaceship going around with the animals and the flowers, but they're all like mutants. And also the aliens are the circles, you know, like the tripulantes, right? Yeah, like sailors.
Yeah.
That's why the cat.
Yeah, sure. And yeah, as you said before, the kawaii, I mean, the kawaii tradition, Japanese tradition, has a lot to do with the cuteness, the tenderness, and of course is also operating so well in subverting a lot of generalizations, sexual, binary, and not binary ones. So it's very important to include, to try to change these scenarios already prefixed, let's say. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, I think the furry also has to do with the division of tenderness, you know, for childhood, or like furry is something tender that for kids might be in cartoons, and again, I think it's this need we have of breaking with this division by age of our society. Like we need to have more permission in order to have more emotional development in any age, right?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I still remember when I was little that I got a bit scared of all these cartoons that were not in the national TV, and that creates a sort of hierarchy in my mind, hierarchy in my mind, because they were not shown because of censorship in the national Italian TV, and that created a gap that I had to fix later when I was a teenager and I understood the difference and the importance also of them. But at the really beginning, I was simply scared because they were not shown to me as something normal, but they were like going in a very strange moment during the daytime. And so it was like weird. Yeah. Yeah. Oh, we have another question on the exhibition making in COVID times. How is working to an exhibition in a total virtual way and also knowing to have the possibility to visit it? And
I think that's more like for you, right?
yeah, I think so. I mean, yeah, thanks for this question. Yeah, I mean, it was sad as all of us can say and tell, because of course we cannot share many important moments with the artist as we used to do before, like dinners, lunches, and chats. And so it's a bit sad for this reason. But I also think that, and we strongly need to, you know, keep going and keep producing art. And because as I read this morning, art is one of the most secure space we can have, and culture is very secure in this way, and we cannot, of course, close it just because we know it's important to read, it's important to have this approach with show, even if virtually. So I think we should keep going and be strong in this moment, especially in this moment. But if you want to add something, you also.
Yeah, personally, when I thought about the show, I was thinking also in the scenery of a TV set, like Star Trek. I think it's one of the images that we use as reference. So I was thinking with the helmet, for example, that people were able to put the helmet, play around, like also using the hall as a screen. So you can be on one side, like watching the TV, in the around the hall, and then the program is on the set. But yeah, that didn't happen. But I get to play with the pictures, and I think it's good to say about the special edition we did. Like I get to play with the picture of that one of the show to create this, fantasy of putting the spaceship on space.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. For the ones who doesn't know, Ad realized for Kunsthalle Lissabon, very nice edition that you can find on our website and our social media. And yes, exactly as she was saying, she played with the installation view, creating another universe inside the universe she built up for the exhibition. Yeah. Yeah. So I think that that's all. There is a glimpse of some Mondrians, what relationship. Oh, we have another question. Wow, from T. Whistler.
Right.
I can get a glimpse of some Mondrians. What relation do you have with formal abstraction?
Right. Well, what I take from the traditional abstraction and also concrete art is kind of, I use them as part of my collage, so like my relationship will be love and hate, because I will take a lot from them, but at the same time I want to subvert the ideas behind their practice, like the misogynism in Bauhaus, or this coldness in concrete art, or like in Mondrian work, also like thinking Mondrian with, you know, the fairies or little animals, or how to contrast or fuse, you know, their work with tenderness and all those things that look separate, you know, in the art history.
Yeah, definitely, because you change completely also their meaning, not just the aesthetic. So yeah, definitely. Okay, yeah, I think we are just about a time, because yeah, the Zoom meeting has time, unfortunately. But yeah, thank you so much, Ad.
No, thank you.
For all the references and for all the topic and theme that emerged from our conversation. It will be posted online tomorrow with all the references. So if you missed today, but I mean, if you're here, you're not missing. So thank you again, Ad. Thank you so much for joining.
Thanks.
And take care. And nothing.
You too.
Again.
Bye.
Thank you, everybody.